Happy Saturday, hackers. Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and today we're going to be doing some blue team work. Pretty excited about what we're going to get up to today. But before we get started with the main business, we have a little bit of cyber news to cover. So, first up in This Week in Cyber, we have a Confluence remote code execution vulnerability. This one is getting listed as, oh, I had the CVE copied, and now I don't. Let me go get it again. There we go. Listed as CVE 2021-26084. And yes, now your chat can show up in the news section. This CVE allows not just authenticated code execution, but also unauthenticated code execution against on-premises Atlassian Confluence servers. Now, if you're not familiar with Confluence, think of it as sort of a documentation and wiki almost solution from Atlassian, part of the Atlassian suite, including Jira, Bitbucket, all of those things that Atlassian offers to allow software development and IT shops to do what they do. Now, a couple important caveats about this. This Confluence vulnerability impacts on-premises Confluence, not cloud. And this is part of a pattern that we've seen time and time again, where slightly legacy on-premises versions of products that also have a cloud offering end up getting maybe not as much attention from their developers, maybe slightly deprioritized in their software development life cycle, and all of a sudden a vulnerability comes up, and then a couple of things. Number one, the developers have to scramble to get a patch out, but also in addition to that particular issue, it becomes another motivation for organizations to move to the cloud, because then they don't have to worry about those kinds of vulnerabilities. Now, if you do have on-premises Confluence, obviously get the patches out that Atlassian is making available. In fact, it's gotten bad enough in terms of the exploitation of these vulnerabilities. Mostly we're seeing crypto coin miners getting injected, but it's getting bad enough that CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency or Administration, I always forget. Let me just look that up right now just so I have it. Agency has put out an advisory about it, and usually when they do that, it's a pretty serious thing, so you want to take a look at that. But in addition to getting those patches out, you're going to want to think about putting some sort of barrier between Confluence and the internet. So consider things like multi-factor authentication, and also perhaps some sort of authentication barrier, so it's not just directly exposed to the internet. Maybe have it flow through something like an Okta authentication phase, so that the first thing that hits the internet isn't actually the Confluence server. And that was kind of the big story that I wanted to cover. I mean, we have some more proxy shell stuff going on against Exchange servers, but that's not really news at this point. The other piece I wanted to talk about briefly is related, and also has something to do with some of the work that I was doing this week, and you may have seen some of this in the Discord. A little bit of an editorial about being careful about ceding ownership. Look, the cloud is here. It's part of our IT lives now, and there's no going back from that. And that's fine. There's a lot of benefit to the cloud. That being said, a lot of the products being offered from every cloud provider, whether from DigitalOcean to Linode all the way up to AWS and Azure, are designed to make things easier for administrators and developers to work. They want to make it easier to deploy things on their platforms. And that's often going to mean giving up control of what you can see and what you can manipulate, and you are ceding not just ownership, but trust of those products to those cloud providers. This isn't news, this isn't a new story, but we keep seeing time and again that the security of these platforms is only as good as the developers that they are using. And you have to put a lot of trust into those developers if you're going to use these tools. For example, we had a vulnerability disclosed this week about Cosmos DB, which is part of the Azure Power Apps offering. And it turned out that a pretty clear process vulnerability in the way that tokens were handled allowed any notebook created with Cosmos DB to read data from any other user's notebook, not just in that Azure tenant either. So it was a pretty severe issue. And again, you are trusting that these products are being created securely, especially when you have applications. I think a lot about things like the functions, Azure Functions or AWS Lambda, where you are writing just a snippet of code and they call it serverless. Well, it's serverless as far as you can see because the server has been abstracted from you. And for those of you who don't know what AWS Lambda is or Azure Functions, basically what I'm talking about is imagine that you have a very simple data processing pipeline that you want to put out. And you don't want to have to write a whole web server to make that happen. You just need to write the procedure to have data come in, something to happen to it, and then data gets spit back out someplace else. To make that easier to deploy, cloud providers have created these function products where you literally just write the code for the function in a specific format and you have your choice of languages. That code then will get deployed kind of in a black box that you can't see, but then will be made available through URLs and whatever else you want to deploy with. Here's the thing though, that code does have to run somewhere. It has to run on a virtual machine somewhere. That thing we call a server. And so it's not actually serverless, it's just serverless as far as you can see. And to my mind, that introduces some risk. If you can't see what's going on, you have to necessarily accept the risk that the security of that machine, you know, is whatever it is. And there's very little that you can do to protect against it. So if there were a remote code execution vulnerability in those function products, you would end up having a component of your pipeline compromised without your ability to take any remediative actions. So I just want to, again, stomp my foot on this idea because more and more organizations are investing more and more in the cloud. And I do agree with a lot of the benefits. I was very bullish on pushing schools toward using Google Drive and Office 365 when those came out because I saw the benefits of being able to access data in those ways, not having to maintain VPNs as much, being able to use those other tools to maintain things. And by the way, from an email standpoint, oh my God, I don't think, nobody should be running an on-prem mail server if they can at all get away with it. But the more easy things look, the more wary you have to be if you are thinking about things from a security perspective. And I would also say, this is more on the administrative side, and then we'll move on. The more abstract your work becomes, and the less you understand the deep down internals, I do think something will eventually get lost. Meaning that if all you do all day is deploy code to containers, or all you do all day is deploy these cloud functions, and you stop understanding the machine that underlies that particular process, eventually some technicality of that underlying platform is going to bite you. And you want to make sure that in your organization or even for yourself, you are maintaining some of those skills, some of those understandings, so that if the worst were to occur and you had to redeploy or you had to build something out yourself, you wouldn't be entirely lost in how to do that. I always had, when I was, running full school networks, I always had kind of a tinfoil hat protocol in place, meaning that so I worked in K-12, right? So we had to deal with minors, students who were younger than the age of 13 and whose information was getting stored by these organizations, but potentially maybe abused by the information may be abused by these organizations. And if we ever found out that that happened, or if we found some change in a terms of service that we didn't find appropriate, what were we going to do with all of our operations? How could we flip a switch and be able to maintain our operations now that we've invested so much in cloud processes. So what I ended up doing was I ended up having kind of a baby cloud that I hosted on-prem that would be able to take over most, if not all, of the operations that we relied on these other services for. Now, is that a little paranoid? Yeah, maybe. But I feel like it's worth thinking about that from, especially from a disaster recovery standpoint and a business continuity standpoint. What would you do if the cloud turned evil? Okay. With that soapbox out of the way, we're moving on to the main material, and today we are taking on some more of the Try Hack Me security operations path. And in particular today, we're going to cover some rooms that deal with Windows event logs. Now, I love me some Windows event logs, and that wasn't always the case. I had to learn to love them. It takes some time to understand how to get at them, how to parse them the best way. And the rooms that we're going to do today, they have some built-in Windows tools that we're going to use, but we're also going to cheat a little bit. We're going to use a third-party tool from FireEye called Redline that is a fantastic incident response and forensics tool. It's absolutely one of the first things I'm going to pull out of my utility belt when I have to do incident response, just because it's so powerful. So we'll walk through Redline as well and demonstrate how it can make some of the collections of these logs a little bit easier. And if you want to follow along, we're here in this Try Hack Me room. Angel has a great question. Getting a little bit ahead. Can Redline only read HX triage files or anything else? No, well, kind of, but here's the thing. You can create a collector that makes a triage package for yourself. I think what you're saying, HX, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is FireEye's EDR solution. And no, you can use Redline without the FireEye EDR solution. You can use Redline by itself because it allows you to write a collector script that pulls what you want for the package that Redline will then read. So we'll go through that. Okay, so I have the Windows Event Logs machine open. It has some intro information about Windows Event Logs. But we're going to basically straight remote connect to this machine and see what we can do here. So I'm going to try this with our desktop just because I find it a little bit easier. But if it doesn't work, if I can figure out how to type today. All right, I keep running into that particular problem with our desktop. I might have to just update it. Maybe that's the situation. Over to Ramina then. Administrator and blue teaming. Exclamation point. Cool. And for those of you who were here on Tuesday, you can tell that this is already, a trillion times more performant than the last one we were dealing with. All right, so here we are. We're in our remote Windows machine, and let's see what this room is asking us to do. I think the first thing it's going to have us do is look through the Windows Event Viewer itself. And it's good to know where the Windows event logs are actually stored. Let me zoom this in just a little bit so it's easier to read. Yeah, there are basically three main ways of accessing these event logs within a Windows system: the Event Viewer, WVT util, which is an old school command line tool, and getWinEvent, which is PowerShell. When I don't use Redline, I will pretty much default to using getWinEvent wherever I can, just because the syntax for me makes more sense. But the GUI works great too. So we'll fire off the Event Viewer, which you can right-click and just get from here. All right. Now, Windows breaks its logs out into a number of different categories. And depending on what you want to see, you have to be looking at the right logs. So for example, just by default, you have the Windows logs of application security, setup, system, forward events. I'm, of course, generally looking at security logs, but that's not all. You know, I may have reason to look at the application or the system logs. And then moving deeper, application service logs, there are deeper logs. You can see that now that Windows has an SSH server, it has some of that. We go into Microsoft Windows, there's a number of logs, as you can see. Now, not all of these are populated, but there are lots in here that are really, really interesting. Of course, I'm looking down to see if sysmon is installed. It isn't, but that's, I think we'll cover that in the next room. So over here is our kind of log options, the specific logs that we want to take a look at. And then over here, we have the records, the log events from the specific log that we are looking at. And beneath that will be the details pane. If we look at details here, it'll show us a lot more information about what's going on. Now, it's important to note that Windows event logs are XML. And so, or they present themselves as XML. So even though, you know, this friendly view, I actually don't think it's that friendly, to be honest with you. But if I look at the XML view, I'm able to see things actually a little bit more clearly. And this is generally what I'd be looking at if I were looking through these, right? If I weren't just looking at the top levels. Now, there's a bunch of Windows event IDs. And if we look at, let's look at the security logs. There's a bunch of Windows event IDs. And over time, the ones that you really start caring about, you'll start to memorize. But don't think that you need to have them all memorized like right up front to be successful as an analyst. What you do need to do is develop the reflex to Google or search everything that you don't know. If you don't know it, look it up. It's okay to not know it. It's not okay to not know it and just ignore it, because the thing that you ignore could be significant. So, for example, I just saw a 4672, right? If I want to know more about a Windows event 4672, I would simply do Windows event 4672. That's a 5672. But it turns out that the first result is actually where I want to go. This website, ultimatewindowssecurity.com, is a almost constantly opened tab on my work machine. It has a listing like this for every single Windows event. It is absolutely invaluable. So you will learn what it means, and not just what the ID means, but what the details of an event could mean. So for example, let's take a look at 4625, which is a failed login. 4625, right, has these extra status codes, and it's important to at least know that these are here and then look them up to understand exactly what a failed logon is telling you, depending on whether it is, you know, username does not exist, the password is wrong, right? So for example, if you see a lot from a SIM standpoint, if you see a lot of 4625s with a username does not exist and the usernames are different, you know, what are we looking at? We're looking at potentially some credential stuffing inside the environment. So these help us filter out some noise, and it's really valuable to understand that these are in here in the Windows events. Okay, so great website here, windowssecurity.com, or ultimatewindowssecurity.com. Okay. And I will also make mention of the PowerShell log. Microsoft, we're in Windows, and there should be PowerShell, right? Yep, there it is. PowerShell operational. And these are, when we're looking about PowerShell logging, this is about what we have. This is about as good as it gets until we install sysmon. And what we're looking at here is the commands that have been executed, right? And some metadata about them. It is hard to read because of the way that it breaks out. So it can be a little bit tricky. I don't love this particular logging set, but it can be very valuable if this is all you have and you're hunting down some PowerShell. Okay, so let's so this is one way to take a look at events, Windows events. Let's see what else the Try Hack Me Room is asking us to do. A look at individual properties. Yeah, we kind of walked through this. We'll see this as we go through. By the way, Event Viewer can connect to other computers. That's, I think, worth mentioning. If you have the WinRM permissions to do so, you can connect to, or is it WMI? Either way, you need RPC permission. So an administrator, either for the remote machine, can connect to another computer and get logs from there. Okay, so we're looking at PowerShell operational. What is the event ID for the first event? Now, keep in mind that these first could be, it's a little vague. Do they mean first as in at the top, or do they mean first as in first chronologically? Because if so, we need to scroll down to the bottom or sort ascending by date and time, in which case the first event would be 40961. I have a feeling, though, that they mean first. So 4104. No, they don't. We're looking at PowerShell operational. So the first event. They actually want first event. Now that's confusing because the first event is 5 digits. Most are disabled. Remote, though, even though it can minimize the sysadmin text. Yes, hopefully it should be disabled, but should is a very, very dangerous word. 40961. Oh, it is 5 characters. I just can't count. And then we can filter in this view on event IDs. The filter in the GUI is not very specific. It doesn't give us a lot of options, but we have some filters we can filter on, and one of them is event ID. So we can filter here on 4104. And we do have a really annoying date filter, but it can be useful. You can also write an XPath query here. We'll get to that in a minute. But for now, let's just filter on 4104 IDs. I should also mention that, you know, this log is pretty tiny. And some of these filtering operations, depending on how many logs you have, can take some time, and depending on how powerful the computer is that you're doing this on. Okay, so we filtered on 4104s. What was the second command executed in the PowerShell session? Right here, who am I? Would be the second command if we're doing this the right way. Beautiful. What is the task category for event ID 4104? This is something that we're going to probably pull from right up here. Execute a remote command. Okay. What is the task category for event ID 800? So we're going to refilter and check out 800. Now, while we're playing with the event viewer, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start for a second talking about Redline and why I think it's so rad. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you where to get it if you want to download it and play with it yourself. Is it still called? No, so it used to be called Mandiant Redline, but it's just called Redline because FireEye and Mandiant kind of like split, sort of. Mandiant is the consulting arm of FireEye. But so Redline, super awesome tool. Let's get you the link so that you can download it if you want. Now, what does Redline do? Let me fire up Redline on my machine, on my actual Windows host machine, so you can see it. So what Redline does is it creates a collector that has scripts in it to collect anything that you want from a machine. And so it has a standard collector, it has a comprehensive collector, IOC search collectors, but I want to go through just a standard collector, or actually I'm going to click on comprehensive to show you, and then we're going to edit it. So first of all, you can create a collector script for Windows, OS X, Mac OS, and Linux. Now, what you can get from those depends on, the platform that you're on, but really, really, really powerful. By the way, it even has the ability to do a memory image right here. Let me zoom that in. Right? You can actually pull a memory image using Redline. So if you are doing a forensics investigation, it might be worthwhile just firing Redline off at something so that you can get all you need in one go. Now, you have to specify the collector package, and I've created a collector package already, but let's click on edit your script just so you can see what all the options are that we have. So I have, by default, that magnifier is more trouble than it's worth. I can, get current processes, drivers, any hooks, any DLL hooking that's going on, right? Now, if I just want Windows events, I can disable all this, right? I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. All of these add to the time it takes for the collector to run, so I'm going to leave these off. But by default, these are great to have, right? Especially if we're doing a forensics investigation, or even an incident response if we got an alert from a SIM or something like that. I can, of course, do file enumeration on the disk. Super, super handy. And check this out. It'll even run hashes for me if I want. MD5, if I wanted to do SHA-256 or SHA-1, I can enable those, although those are time intensive. So be aware if you enable those, you're going to be sitting for a few hours. Obviously, system information, registry enumeration, and event logs. Now, this is pretty much, default what I want. Now, I've actually disabled for my event log collector everything but event logs. And if I click on show advanced parameters, you can even see that I can specify event logs to parse. So if I just wanted security, I could get those. Or if I just wanted PowerShell or sysmon logs, I could just get those. I can even put in a direct path to the event log. I have network options. I can get that, including browser history, which, by the way, is invaluable. If I can get browser history very often, I can trace down the root cause of an infection for a machine, right? I can see when the download happened, whether intentionally or accidentally. Really, really handy to get this. And then, of course, am I doing hashing? If I do MD5, right? And then looking for any common persistence mechanisms. Analyzing entropy does take time, so be aware of that, right? If we're looking for things that are likely to be obfuscated code. Okay, so I have already created an Windows event only collector package, and let me show you what you get when you do that. What you get is a folder full of this stuff, right? So if you do it for Windows, you get a folder full of this kind of thing. And you get this batch script called run redlineaudit.bat, and that's what you would run. You move this folder over to the target system, you run this batch script, and that is what is going to do the collection for you. What you get back then is a .mans file, which we can then use in Redline to do the analysis. So let's move this folder. I've already zipped it and put it in our Kali machine for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to move this over. Hopefully I have copy paste through Amina. Okay, I don't, which is fine. What I'll do instead is I'll do the old school version, right? CD downloads, right? Do it hacker style. And I will fire up a web server here. and I will use invoke web request. I know we're going to need a bigger font in this PowerShell window, and I know we're going to need it later, so let me just kick that up now. Okay, so we're going to do invoke web request URI HTTP 10.13.7.20 48,000. Dang, what's this thing called? Win event logs only.zip. We'll call it collector.zip on the out file just so it's easier to deal with. Down it comes. It's like 16 meg, so it shouldn't take that long. Awesome. Go into downloads. Let me extract that. And then we're going to run, we are an administrator here. Hey, Fox, good to see you. So we're just going to run that batch script right from here. And then stuff that looks evil starts happening, but it's actually okay. All right, so we'll let this kind of cook in the background. By the way, a little bit under the hood, but see this xagent.exe that you see here? What happens really is that Redline has a slightly defanged instance of FireEye's EDR inside of it, because xagent is what the FireEye HX binary is. So pretty cool that they make this available. It's a really, really handy piece of kit. Okay. Back to the Try Hack Me challenge. They're asking, what is the task category for event ID 800? We have the event viewer up. Hold on, are we using the right log? We're using the analyze the Windows PowerShell log. So this is actually a different log, right? We're in PowerShell operational. I think they want us to be Windows PowerShell. Yeah. Because Windows PowerShell has its own logging. It's not helpful most of the time. Pipeline execution details is the task category for event ID 800. Fieldsbra, thank you so much for the follow. How's that collector doing? I can only Alt-Tab. Oh wait, no. The prompt is back, so it looks like the collector ran, which is cool. Let's see what it gave us. So see this sessions right here in analysis session 1? This is what we want. So what I want to do is, analysis session 1.mans. See how it's only 1 KB? I actually want I need all this. This is where the data is. So I'm pretty much gonna need to get this back off of the machine. So I should have done this in the first place, but I should have done this with an SMB server. So it would have been easier to deal with. Is that right? Nope. Impacket SMB server. Oh, is it just the share? I don't have to give it the name. Just give it that. Awesome. So then, can I... This doesn't always work this way. I might have to 10.13.7.20/tt. No, but interestingly, if I do it from the command line, if I do new SMB mapping, we'll call it G, and send it to 10.13.7.20. Oh, that's why. I need to do it with SMB2. Yep. SMB2 support. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, I have to give it a username and password. Otherwise, notice, by the way, I'm collecting the hashes because I'm making an SMB connection. Yeah, I'll give it a username and password. All right, let's try that one more time. Okay, so that's how you mount drives from the command line from PowerShell. So now, if I open up this PC, I should have a G drive. What? Is it just here? It's only in the, yeah, it's only in that PowerShell session. That's why. Okay, well that's fine though, because does that work? No. Downloads, collector, logs only. Right, we're gonna Can I do a CP-R in PowerShell? We'll find out in a second. Looks like yes. Okay, we'll let that kind of keep doing its thing. Meanwhile, WVT util. Not my favorite. So this is the old school command prompt way of doing things. Oh wait, we didn't finish the event viewer? Once again, just spending all my time here scrolling. There we go. So I have a bit of a shortcut for that problem. I use a browser extension called Vimium, which gives me Vim shortcuts in the browser. So I can use like my J and K keys to scroll up and down, and capital G will scroll me to the bottom of the page, and GG will put me up at the top. So I do have ways of kind of getting around that scrolling issue, but still a pain. All right, wvtutil.exe. Let's open up a command prompt, a straight up command prompt. Webutil, WEBT util. Right? And it gives us some help options. Let me make this font a little bit bigger too. Okay. Let's use enum publishers or yeah, and asking for help is just the /? So we're going to enum logs first. So el. Utterly unhelpful. This is why I like actually doing this stuff in PowerShell anyway. So if I do log names, we do much easier. What, that's 71. What is the definition for the query events command? Are we done? Thank God. We've finished the collector. Let me go get that. You'll see why I'm doing this in a second. I'm going to copy this folder to my downloads on my Windows side. At least I think I am. Can I not go backwards? That's annoying. I thought I could, though. Do I have to zip it? I've definitely moved things from the Kali box to my Windows side before. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Can't do folders, but it can do single files. Fine. Now, finally, see this .mans file? I can open this thing with Redline, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. With any luck, we'll have Windows event logs really, really easy to read right here in Redline. All right. What else is it asking us to do? What's the definition of the query events command? So query events. Query events from a log or log file. What? Do we have to get help for that specific thing? Yes. Read events from an event log file using structured query. I don't have that hooked up, Llama Llama, but the song name is always down at the bottom from Night Ride FM. Currently, you are listening to Prism by Horizon. What option would you use to provide a path to a log file? LF true. What is the value per /q? Query value. Query something. Is it? Oh, wait. XPath query? Is that what they're looking for? Yes. Okay. Good. I do not enjoy WVT util just because it's such a funky syntax. Oh, delightful. Our redline package loaded. And we'll skip right to event logs. Oh, so good. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, this is a much easier way of dealing with all the Windows event logs in one place. And we'll use this as we move forward. But you can see we have all the event IDs right here, which we can filter by. We can filter by log. We can filter by all sorts of stuff. And the generated, super handy. One of the things that we have with timestamps in Redline is the ability to do a date time range, or what's called a time wrinkle, where we target a time and then we do plus or minus however many seconds, minutes, or hours. So if you want to look for a specific span of time, it's really, really easy to do that. You can also see, yeah, I didn't ask it to do really anything. I really just asked it to do event logs. I think it might have gotten users for me anyway. It did. But super handy. And then, by the way, all of the stuff that it has, it's going to put into a single massive timeline for you, so you can see just the raw feed of everything that happened on a system. If I sound effusive about Redline, it's because I am. I truly admire this piece of software. It has been invaluable in my own incident response work. Okay, back to the WVT util stuff. We'll get to some more Redline later. All right, let's run WVT util QE application. Count 3. RD. What is RD? Reverse direction, of course. What is the log name? Application. Oh, do we not even need any data from it? We just need to review the command. Event read direction. And -C, maximum number of events to read. Okay. Moving right along there. We survived the WVT util part of this. And now we're going to do get win event, the PowerShell version of the same thing. Now, get win event has a lot of ability to filter really, really handily, but its syntax can be a little bit tricky. You can see how it's expecting you to use some PowerShell stuff to do some filtering here. Now, this right here is a little bit clunky because piping the entire application log to where object or where, and then having this filter be the result is inefficient. There's a better way to do it, which yeah. And this is the better way to do it, which is the filter hash table. What we can do with filter hash table is give a filter directly to get win event that has the criteria that we want to filter the log on right inside of it, and including event ID. This is how we would do that. Tip: if you're working on a Windows evaluation virtual machine that is cut off from the internet, eventually it will shut down every hour. Which we're coming right up to, aren't we? So let's take a look at the filter hash table in action. Let's run get win event. Actually, can I clear? Yeah, get win event. And we will do filter hash table. And then we create the hash table, the key value pair. Just like so. So we're gonna say log name. JMDPT, thank you so much for the follow. Log name, oh, caps lock, equals security. Don't know why I blanked on that. Semicolon, if we don't do line breaks. Event ID equals 4625. Luckily, there were no events that matched our criteria. Let's try 4624. Dang it. Is it ID or is it capital? I always forget if it's described as event ID or ID. There it is. It's ID. So let's see. Let's look for failed logins. See if there are any of those. There are plenty. And now you can see that each one of these, has a lot of information, and more than even I'm getting to see here, right? The time created ID, level display name, message. So what I might want to say is save this to a variable like failures, like so. And then what I could do is say failures, look at the first one, and pipe that to format list to see all of the things that it has inside of it. Time created, provider name, ID, and then message. Now, message is text, annoyingly. So all of this stuff, this beautiful, beautiful data, is just unstructured text, which is a bit of a pain. Now, you can get the XML out of it as well. There's some extra things you can do to get the XML out of this to get all the details. But that's also, again, why I really like working with Redline, because Redline does that for me. You can see that it has the entire message, but it also has pulled quite a bit of that information out really, really handily for me. If I click on show details over here in Redline, you can kind of see all of that. And of course, I also have the ability to search inside the message, making it a lot easier for me to figure out what's going on. You can, of course, search in PowerShell, but it can get a little bit funky. Also, I should mention that working with dates in PowerShell is a bit tricky. You can do it, but you kind of you have to practice with it. The first thing to know is that dates are not strings in PowerShell. Remember that PowerShell was designed to be programmed around objects, structured objects, not text like the Linux command line. So a date time object in PowerShell is exactly that. So I can't give a start time or a date time like an ISO string. I can't give it 2021-0904, right? I have to give it a datetime object, and to make a datetime object, I have to use something like getDate. And then after getDate, I could do something like add days -1. That should turn it into September 3rd. Yep. Boy, you know, there are some languages that I feel very confident doing from memory. PowerShell is not one of them. So what you have to do is you have to feed this kind of a date object into your filter hash table if you were going to use that to filter by time. If we go back up, yeah, so let's try that. You literally do it like get date dot add days -1, just to see like the most recent. Oh, start time. My bad. That's what we want. Not time created. Start time. Start time. Really? I mean, maybe that's true. Let's take the ID out and see if it gives us anything. Oh, it sure does. Yeah, that worked a treat. There just weren't any failed logins. So that's kind of how we do that. There are other ways of creating date objects. I find this to be the fastest, right? If I just want to look for like the last day, real handy. Okay. Chat, you're quiet. Please don't hesitate to answer or to ask questions. So this is interesting. Since we're on the topic of get when event filter hash table, here's a command that you might find useful by Mubix. Oh. So what we're looking at here, get when event, we've seen filter hash table, we're looking for PowerShell commands, we're looking for scripts executed. Then we're selecting the message, right? That big old text value. No worries if you're doing beacon research, that's cool. Happy to be background noise for that. And then once we get the message, we are piping that to select string. Think of that as grep if you're a Linux person. And we're looking for secure string. What we're looking for here is anybody trying to create credentials in the command line and then use those in subsequent commands, right? Because secure string allows you to generate, credential type strings in PowerShell. That's what that's about. Oh, we're supposed to answer this with the online help for get when event. Okay. Example 1. What was example 1? Was it this? What are the names of the logs related to OpenSSH? I love how clear screen doesn't actually clear screen. This is dumb. I'm doing this in Redline. Right? Because all I have to do is filter for SSH. Or, you know, not. See if there's any SSH in the message. Okay, definitely. So it looks like we have Microsoft Windows Shell Core operational. Hey, syscalls, we're doing Windows event logs. Microsoft Windows Shell Core operational. Windows PowerShell might have some stuff. I feel like we did not get... Was this what they wanted us to run? I feel like we did not get them right. No. What was example 1? They're not numbered. Yes, we're doing a Try Hack Me room. Oh, wait a minute. Example 1 from the Windows documentation. I should have put that together. Get win event list log asterisk. So that's crazy. We are going to select string pattern SSH. Do I need to use... Does that matter? No. Is it SSH anywhere? Nope. Oh, I have to do a regular expression. Well, well, well. Or I could just read the bottom of the list. OpenSSH admin, OpenSSH operational. Manuel, thank you so much for saying so. I just want to make sure that, you know, without feedback, this is the teacher in me, right? Quick teacher behind the scenes thing. There's a concept in education called formative assessment. And formative assessment basically means, imagine that there's this feedback, right, between teacher as provider of information or coach for concepts and student who's trying to learn new skills. In order for me to know that this thing is working, feedback has to come back. Now, dumb feedback like pop quizzes or like what people think of with formative assessment, but that's really not I think the best way to think about it. Formative assessment can also take the shape of good questions that indicate that learning is taking place or understanding is happening. And that informs me, 1, that things are on the right track, and 2, where we might need extra clarification. So that's why I ask, you know, for some feedback, but I totally understand if you're just focused and you're enjoying it. That's great too. Like, the side project I'm trying to work on here is figure out, for lack of a better term, the pedagogy of Twitch. How can we use this platform to best educate people? I don't think we have it all figured out yet, and I want to do the best job that I can learning how it works and how to best deliver information. Okay. So OpenSSH admin, OpenSSH operational are probably these two. Okay. Execute the command from example 7. What you got for me, example 7? Get event log provider name that contains a specific string. So we're looking for policy. providers. Oh my. What is the name of the third log provider? This is again why I really like saving these things to PowerShell variables. That way I can just cut right to them, right? The third one. Group policy data sources. Oh, I should have searched for PowerShell. Oops. Manuel, thank you so much. I'm glad that I'm answering questions before you even had them. That's good to know. And I'm super glad that you're enjoying the stream. All right, let's list out for PowerShell. Okay, the third one is very long. Microsoft Windows PowerShell desired state configuration file download manager. That's a mouthful. Okay. Execute the command from example 8. Oh, cool. So what are we looking at here? Let me zoom that in real quick. Get when event, list provider, group policy. We're getting the .events. Piping that to format table, and we're getting ID and description. But we're going to change up the provider, right? They wanted us to use Microsoft Windows PowerShell as the provider. No problem. We'll just change up. By the way, quick PowerShell tip. You just saw me delete that entire word with one keystroke, basically. So on the Linux command line, right, if I have a bunch of words and I want to delete one of them entirely, Control-W does that for me, right? Takes me back an entire word. The same thing exists in PowerShell, but it's Control backspace. So if I do Control backspace, it deletes the last word. So we'll look for characters and then back to the last, the next non-alphabetic character. Syscalls, thank you so much for the follow, and hope to see you in the Discord. All right, so we're getting these events. We're formatting them with ID and description. So this is a cool way of actually seeing all the events and maybe learning them if you wanted to just see them in the PowerShell window rather than looking them up. How many event IDs are displayed for this provider? Well, isn't there like account items? There is, right? I always forget what it is, but I know for sure there is one. Measure object, that's right. $188. If they're gonna tell us to do that. How do you specify the number of events display? That's max events. Yeah. Wait, what? How many event IDs? Is it not? That's interesting. Let's pipe the table to measure objects. See if that's a different number. 192. Fascinating. Get some duplicates. When using the filter hash table parameter and filtering by level, what is the value for informational? Was it 0? 1? Should probably just look this up, huh? Level in 32. Level equals 3. But that's not informational. Oh, it goes the other way. I was like, we're getting high up in the numbers here. 4, okay. Oh god, okay. This is my least favorite part of Windows event logs. I'm sorry, but my brain cannot with XPath queries. But we'll go through them because I think they're important to know. So, the XML path language is a way of creating XML path queries that have parameters inside of an XML path, basically. And remember that the Windows events that we were looking at, right, are XML. So basically working down the object tree and then parameterizing whatever you want to search for. That's what XPath is all about. So oh, hey, no problem. Glad that you found your way here. Right, so if we filter XPath with asterisk, we're going to get the whole smash, right? Everything for the application log, because we're not filtering on any part of the document path, right? Or the object path. If we go down to system, we'll see things that are system. And then you could say system event ID equals like so. So you can filter like that. Let's try that with the failed logins, 4625s. I'll do my level best here. So we'll get win event log name. Notice that we keep the log name out of a hash table because we have to specify the log first and then we filter through the XML. Anyway, security, and then filter XPath. We're gonna go system event ID equals 4625. Of course, I got something wrong. Is it event ID? Yeah, there we go. So, if you can get comfortable with this syntax, you're good to go. Now, it gets a little bit crazier next. Yeah, here we go. If we want to query on a different element such as provider name, the syntax will be different to filter on the provider. So if we look at the event log itself, you can, yeah. So I think it's worth mentioning. So like provider is the tag, right? And name is the attribute. And consequently, what we're doing with this XPath query is we're saying we're filtering on the name attribute of the provider tag, where name is equal to this. That's what's going on there. Jadesh, thank you so much for the follow. And you can do Boolean logic to combine two different filters. Now, this is where things get a little bit trickier, because event data, notice, has multiple different data components, right? So again, data, each of these, it's kind of hard to see, and that's blued, highlighted for some reason. So basically, event data is an array. And each data tag, right, is going, or data element is going to have different components, of course, but notice that it also has, each one has a different name attribute. So if we want just the target username, we're going to have to use that weird at and bracket syntax again, where we're filtering down to event data, data, and then name equals target username. And then we want to see, so see how we're filtering. This is honestly making a lot more sense to me this time than it ever used to. But see how we're filtering just for data elements that have a name target username, and then further we're filtering, okay, so for all of the usernames that we find, we only want the ones that have system as the value in here. That's what we end up getting back. So a little bit tricky to make that happen, but that's what the XPath is doing there. Ugh. And of course, what is the query to find WLMS events with a system time of 2020? Ugh. Okay. I think we can just give it a full time string like this, though. I believe we can, because if we look at the yeah. Okay, so this is going to be, we'll test it here in the PowerShell. So we're going to do get when events and log name WLMS. Question, we have to learn each syntax or working logic is enough to... let's see, question on topics. I have a question. We have to learn each syntax or working logic is enough to working after on Windows system. Can you tell me a little bit more about what syntaxes you're talking about? Little fuzzy on that question. We can filter, we just do provider name, right? We have to do keep going to my prompt, log name, application, filter, XPath. Oh, do you have to, so for this, if you're talking about these, do you have to learn every syntax? No, although you should be pretty familiar with at least one of them, right? Get when event is what I use most of the time for quick pulls of Windows events. But to be honest with you, what I'm doing a lot these days is I'm just exporting the EVTX file into another format. Right now, I'm working on a notebook, a Python notebook, to parse all the EVTX files so that I have what I need and I can work with it in Python. That's a little bit next level, but I do think to get started, especially if you're going after a threat hunter certification or something like that, at least be very good with get when event. And then, as I was saying before you might have tuned in, tools like Redline Collector, or Redline Collector, but FireEye's Redline tool can collect the logs for you and give you another way of filtering through them really, really easily. So, make sure that you have tools that you know how to use in your toolbox. Okay, so we're doing system, and then let's, again, take a look at that Windows event to see how this thing is structured. So system, then we're going to go to provider, and this is where we go with that bracket syntax. Token story, yeah, I love the Redline triage files. Provider, and we do name equals WLMS, right? Let's just make sure we have that much correct. Great. All right, so our XPath is working so far. Now we have to go down to a system time. And where are we in the tree? If we look at the XML again, so now we're inside of system, and we can get time created. Now I'm pretty sure we have to use an and to combine these two. I think that's what they're getting at here. Or not. Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're after here. Find WLMS events with a system time of... Because you can combine these two queries, right? Yeah. System... We do like and oh, is this the trick? System time created. Yes. And see how time created doesn't have a value inside of it, it just has this attribute. So again, we're going to have to use that bracket syntax. So system time created system time equals, and then we'll paste in that time string. Good God. That was quite the query. And I have no idea. Yeah, They didn't like that. But it did work. I'm really not sure what they're after here for this one. Especially with these three... Oh, it's so long. Look at this thing. That's bananas. Why would you do this in such a very specific way? So, let's see. What is the query? Oh, is it just... Hold on a second. Does it start? What is the query? Is it... Get dash... Win... Get dash win event dash log name application filter xpath slash star or quote star slash system. We're working through what they're expecting here. They use single quotes outside, so I will use single quotes and then double quotes on the inside. I'm not gonna lie, that was a personal victory for me. I've struggled with XPath so much in the past. And I think this was actually a blocker when I last tried to do this room. Cybersec Murph, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, this is why I don't use XPath. What is the query to find a user named Sam with a logon event ID of 4720? So logon events, that's going to be security. So the log name is going to be security. And we're going to say event ID, and we actually do want the internal value of this, so no brackets for this one. Event ID equals, what was it? What are we looking for? 4720. Okay. 4720 and system. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. System event data, right? Because we need the event data for this thing. And let's go look at the security events so that we can see one of them. Okay, event data, and we have to filter for the target username. Sorry. Subject username. Actually, is it? No, it should be target username. I'm not crazy. Logons have target usernames. So event data slash data name equals target username, and this is how we have to filter for that value. Event data. Let's get rid of this. data name equals, you know what, let me flip the quotes here so I can copy pasta it easier when we move it over to try hack me. Name equals target username. And then equals Sam. Yeah? Oops. Great username. Several B's. Thank you so much for the follow. Oh, good eye, Monimo. Absolutely. Thank you so much. 4720. Still no. But that might be because username is not camel case that way. No, it is. That data name. We'll get there. We'll get there. I've had one victory with XPath. I'm all cocky now. Let's take this part out. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Event data it's not event, it's data, right? That's what I had before. Let's confirm that's correct. Data, name. Target username. Let's take out this part just to make sure that the... Okay, that part works. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure how to filter on event data, but let's go back and look at the documentation here, because I think they name equals target username equals system. No, wait a minute. Event data. Data. Did I not do exactly that? Oh, is it because they're searching for all caps? Oh, let's try system to see if I get any systems, right? Okay, let's take out 4720 and let's make it 4624, which is a successful login. Okay, something's going wrong. System, event data. It was without the /system in the doc. You are correct. Good call, syscalls. All right, let's try that again. Really good catch. Hey, that was it. Now, why? Was there something I was missing about the structure? Yes, there was something I was missing about the structure. Here's why that wasn't working. System and event data are paralleled. So I was looking inside of system, couldn't find anything because event data wasn't inside system. Very good work. Very good work. Okay, so we have our query. Woo! 2 events, right? Based on the output from question number 2, what is massage? The user account was created. What time was event ID 4724 recorded? All right, so we'll rework this for 4724. And there's a single one of those. We get the time created, so we don't have to pipe it to format list or anything. By the way, let's say I wanted to do this in Redline since we've been talking up Redline and we haven't had a chance to use it yet. Let's say I wanted to look for 4724s. I would do event ID. Event log index. That's not what I want. So first of all, I want to do a generated sort descending if I want. And then I want to do a sort on the event ID. We'll do 4720 to do that first one. Wow. Didn't find anything. Oh wait, I have a filter on message. Let me clear that out. There we go. Ooh, that was almost concerning. But you can see that I can just sort by event IDs here, which is super fast. And then I can just look at the details for each of these. Real handy. What is the provider name? So I just piped it to format list to get everything out. I could have also piped it to select provider name. And that would have given me exactly the detail that I wanted. If you want to know what a PowerShell object has in order that you can work with, the unfortunately named get member will kind of break down a PowerShell object into the methods and properties that it has. So if you want to know what a kind of thing can do for you, right here. Okay. Awesome. We're getting there. This is just about event IDs. So was the TLDR in this? Windows event IDs are important. Windows event IDs are important. But yeah, it actually, the Windows logging cheat sheet. I would say that there are a bunch of these that you can look for. This is a good one. Sans has a bunch of default cheat sheets for looking for Windows event IDs. And over time, you just get used to. In fact, even the Windows internals room that we did last week had some of this information. After moving from this room, do you have to know PowerShell queries as well? I would. Here's the thing. Knowing PowerShell queries makes you fast, and fast can mean a lot in incident response. You don't want to have to be on an incident response and constantly looking up things because you don't know how to do them. You want to have some of this stuff as muscle memory. And then, by the way, next step after that is to automate it all, right? Once you know pretty much every time the stuff that you want to look for, write a script that does it for you, or use a tool like Redline that you've configured to collect exactly what you want so that you know how to get it quickly. So PowerShell is one way to do it. These other tools like Redline are another. I'm not going to say, right, that you have to know PowerShell cold to be successful. In my experience, it helps because then when something doesn't work quite right, or you encounter an edge case where you're looking for something a little bit off the beaten path, you know how to get it because you have that PowerShell experience. When I got my analyst job, the first two things that I bought, because I was a Linux guy primarily beforehand, the first two things that I got, knowing that I was going to be engaging with so many Windows systems, were the Windows Internals textbook, which we covered last week, and a PowerShell how-to. Oh, thank you. Yes, we will add an hour to the machine time. So what we're looking at here is spotting adversary with Windows Event Log Monitoring. Basically, how can you start knowing what's weird in Windows Event IDs? And over time, you'll learn how to look at those and understand what each one of those looks like. And I think there are some rooms actually in TryHackMe, which we will do, that have some of those anomalies. Yeah, this is terrifying, right? So you should never see WScript is evil. And if it's calling C system files temp command, like, this is obviously bad. But any time you see WScript.exe firing something off, so 4688, a new process is being created with this command line, you look for patterns of suspicious stuff. I have no idea how to pronounce that. TateNet, maybe? Thank you so much for the follow. All right. Now we actually have to do a thing. The next scenarios are based on the external event log file titled merged.evtx. Now, I'm hoping that they actually exported some stuff from here. The Threat Intel team shared its research on Emotet. They advised searching for event ID 4104 and the text script block text. Okay, so actually, never seen WScript used non-maliciously. So syscalls, I have, and let me tell you where you will find it. You will find it in admins who have crazy stuff going on. That's one. But actually, I've seen a lot of Steam games, believe it or not, have WScript stuff going on in the background, and they're not malicious. They're just weird. And the reason I've seen so many of these days is that we're in, a BYO environment in post-COVID world where people, use more of their personal devices, you'll see some stuff. It's pretty funky, but yeah. It happens, although rarely. So they're using a separate event log file here. Now, we can use all of our PowerShell tools to do so. We can to investigate it. We can also open up the event viewer, of course. We can also, if you want, use Redline against that specific event log file. In fact, I'll show you how to do that because I think it's worth learning how. So I'm going to close Redline here. And I'm going to create a new collector, right? So I'm going to browse to my Redline collectors folder. I'm going to make a new one. For merged EBTX. And what are we doing? We're going to make this again super lightweight, right? I want it to run quickly. So all I'm collecting is event logs. Turn all this stuff off. No. Turn off services, turn off tasks. I just want the event logs. Event log. Now, this is why this is handy. I can actually give it a full path, right? So I can do C, users, administrator, desktop, merged, .ebtx, right? Fantastic. So I've created that collector now. If I look in my scripts, Redline collectors. Yep, so you see I've got a merged EBTX folder inside of which has much of the same stuff that the other one did, including its own X-Agent instance. I'm going to zip that up. Copy pasta that over to my Kali machine. And luckily, I should still have my SMB mapping up, right? Not CD, CP. Oh, merged dbtx.zip. Should get the file name right, huh? Okay. Go ahead and unzip that. And then so we'll run this collector here, right? All right, we'll let that do its thing and see if we can get started with some PowerShell stuff. It's not expiring soon. See, really, can we do the same things with PowerShell? Yes, you can do the same things with PowerShell that you can do with Redline. Redline is free, I should mention. So I'm not, and I pretty much exclusively use free tools when I uh, teach something. So, what event ID is to detect a PowerShell downgrade attack? You just look that up, basically. Yeah, that's going to be 400. So we can actually look for event ID 400 a bunch of different ways. So to start, we will use PowerShell. Where's my other PowerShell window? That's fine. Oh, wow, is it done? Handy. So we'll start in PowerShell, though. So we'll do... And I'm going to cd... Yeah. Let me confirm that the session for Redline did what I expected it to do. Okay, good. It has content. Fantastic. Okay. We'll deal with that in a minute, but first we will do get win event. Now, for this one we have to do, I believe it's log path. Merged EBTX, and we can also say event ID 400. Is it not log path? We have the get win event. There we go. Just path name, maybe? I really thought it was log path. Okay, well, we're not doing that. Streamlabs makes it weirdly hard to delete stuff. Nobody click on that link. You're gone. Okay. Oh, it's just dash path. Okay. Well, the good news is we can do a filter hash table. Ooh. That means we have to give it the path inside. What? Oh, interesting. Does not appear to be a valid log file. That's really different. Notice that merged has opened up here. And that's what we're looking at here. It's interesting that it didn't work in PowerShell, though. We give it an absolute path. Does that work? It pops up again. Interesting. I've never seen that behavior before. All right. Well. Yeah. It's going to be a ton of stuff, right? Yeah, I can't just do ID as a parameter. So if we can't do a filter hash table, that's unfortunate. I guess we could try XPath, huh? That worked a treat. Okay. This is karma. This is because I was bad-mouthing XPath, and now having powered my way through it, now we have to use it. Okay. So we've got a lot of event ID 400s. Was the date and time this attack took place? I mean, there's a bunch of them. Do I ever do some reverse engineering on stream? Syscalls? I'm starting to be honest with you, so reverse engineering, I'm learning. So I do some stuff in Radar too, or Ryzen. I've done a little bit of Android RE, but yes, I'll do that kind of reverse engineering, and certainly doing reversing of like Java or Python code or stuff like that. Yes. Tuesdays tend to be the red teamy stuff, and then for reverse engineering from a blue team standpoint, like malware analysis, that's something we're definitely starting to do. And we do blue team stuff on Saturdays. Yeah, I will very likely take you up on that. There are a few other folks that I have kind of in the pocket. And if anyone knows Zarsek, we were doing some CTF stuff last night, and I was learning tons just from playing along. So I'm not really sure. There are a lot of event ID 400s, so I'm not really sure where they want seconds. What do we want? What is it? Reverse direction? No. Oldest. Oldest is the parameter for getting the oldest first. Okay, it sure seems to me like we're talking about December 14th, 2020 at 6/19/55 was when this appears to have begun. No? Do we mean 6/20/30? then, because there's a bunch there. $620.31. We'll just power through these real quick. No, 32. Then what are we dealing with? Did I miss something in the instructions here? Oh, I did. It's a single-digit hour. At least we know that. And it's a double-digit month and day. That doesn't really narrow it down too much. I am so confused by what they want here. A log clear event was recorded. That's what is it? The Guar knows this super well. The log clear is, was it like 19 something, or what is it, 1104? $1102. No? Okay. You know what? Because we're struggling mightily here, let me copy over our session. Let's see, downloads. GPTX. Oh no. Let's get this back over so that we can get this open in Redline. Much better. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to search for message cleared. The system log file was cleared. The event ID is 104. So what? Event record ID. That's not the event ID, is it? I'm struggling with reading comprehension. The event record ID was... It's actually the index, right? Oh, I wonder if this isn't preserved. All right, so it's event ID 104, which means we can. And this happens sometimes, right? That there's interplay back and forth between tools. Okay. And let's get everything here. Now, remember that I said that these objects have other capabilities, right? And one of them is toXML, which means that we don't have to open up the event viewer. To actually read the XML. See that? I wonder if it's the activity ID. Nope. Event record ID. I just can't read. 27736. Now, I'm curious. Was that was what Redline had as the index, isn't it? Okay. So, that's good to know that the event record ID is preserved in Redline. It's just called the index. I wasn't sure if that was going to be the same once it was inside of Redline. Let's put that in the answer to confirm that that's right. What is the name of the computer? pco1.example.corp. Very handy. Again, thank you, Redline. Now, let's look for event ID 400 in Redline to see if we can do any better. Okay, and we are sorting by generated here. Again, it looks very much like what we saw, right? A lot of 1218. Now notice that the timestamps are no longer localized. These are in Zulu time. So just be aware of that. Now, we want to know what the script was that was run during the attack. So we're also gonna look for 4104s to see these script blocks. And let's see if there's a pattern in our Oh, look at this. There's a huge block of stuff that happened on the 15th of December. Well, this looks like that strict mode, guest message details, info, message. This doesn't look crazy just yet. Let's come down to the bottom here. Alright, seeing some more interesting script stuff go on here. Set aliases. But we still don't know what the first thing in the attack was, right? Because we don't know, we don't have a time window here. So questions 3 and 4. We're on question 5. The threat intel shared its research on Emotet. They advised searching for event ID portal 4104 and the text script block text within the event data element. Find the encoded PowerShell payload. Well, okay, we have done exactly that. And the text script block text. Well, let's filter that further in Redline. We can do that by yeah, I think they did that wrong. Because it's all this here. Oh, look at that. Was it? Oh, okay. There we go. Desktop rip clip. I think that might be the tell here is the machine. Yeah, this is some encoded nonsense. Ugh. What is this? That was a mistake. Forensics on Windows systems, things are important to a SOC analyst. Yes, very important. You have to be able to understand what malicious code looks like. Is Redline free through FireEye? Yes, Delirium. It is. Alright, let's try CyberChef. See what we can do with it. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is data format. Let's do a URL decode. No, you're good. Oof. Look at that, Word 2019. Direct A Service Point Manager. Hey, Oreo Bite. Good to see you. Okay. This got, like, crazy. Oh. They weren't asking for us to decode the command. They were asking for us for the first variable. What is the date and time the attack took place? The date and time the attack took place was... oh, I need to find... 826, 509 Zulu, but I need to put that in whatever local time the Windows machine is using. But we have some... Filter this current event log. 4104. And it's like, yeah, this is the guy right here. So 10:28 p.m. The execution process ID. Well, for that, we need to correlate by time what took place here with something else. Now, for that, I really prefer redline. Why? Because we're gonna take this time and we're gonna go to our timeline here. And I could have done it in event logs too, but I actually want to see. It looks a little bit different in the timeline, as you can see. So we're going to do the timestamp, and we're going to do a time wrinkle. We're going to give it... this is a feature request I actually have with FireEye, where you can't paste time zones the right way. So it's what? I had it at... well, it's August, right? So... wasn't it? Yeah. This right here. But interestingly, I only have, like... Okay, let's take out the filters. And let's see. August 26th. Creating script block. And then... oh, it was here the whole time. I just couldn't see it. Execution PID. There we go. I was like, because I was looking for like a process created, but no, we have the execution PID right here. What is the group security ID of the group sheet enumerated? Oh, wait. I have to go up here again. A report came in that an intern was suspected of running unusual commands on her machine, such as enumerating members of the administrator group, net users, right? A senior analyst suggested searching for net1.exe. All right, let's look for net1.exe. Cut right to it. Again, you can see why, like, again, PowerShell is great. Use it, but when time is of the essence, you want to have these tools that can be really, really flexible, and Redline does the job. So a user's local group membership was enumerated. .exe, the account name was administrator, the account, let's see this one, IE user, built in. Okay. And what are we asking for here? What is the group security ID and what is the event ID? So the it's just administrators, right? And the event ID is 4799. Can we say GUI is greater than command line for forensics? Absolutely not. Definitely not. It's not one or the other. And for everybody out there, dudes, especially in my experience, who are always like, well, what's the best thing? That doesn't exist. Stop looking for it. There is no best thing. You have a bunch of tools. Use what works. There is no, this thing is always better than the other. My Linux distribution is better. My operating system, my game console, my car. Nonsense. There is no greater than like that. It's how you use them. I use GUI tools like this because I find the search features fast and efficient. But there are some things that this is going to make harder to see. And for that, I'd go back to the command line. It depends on exactly what you're looking for and your familiarity with the tool. $47.99, right? Okay, so $47.99. What was the name of the? Yeah. So this, by the way, is the SID of the subject that's doing the thing. But what am I missing here? the built-in, it's built-in slash administrators, right? Delirium, this is just a general question. Would you say someone who has the means to get a degree and wants to get into cybersecurity to get a degree in cybersecurity, or more general like computer science slash IT? Whew. So I will answer that with the caveat that I can only answer from my slice of experience, and I don't want anyone to take that as a general rule. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that everybody's path is going to look different. Some of you might know, like, I was an English major. I was a teacher before, and then I was a school IT person, but before I got into InfoSec, I was just always fascinated by technology. Everything that you see me doing here is self-taught. I didn't go to school for any of it. Can you succeed that way? Yeah. Did I have a lot of advantages in doing so? Also very much yes. I think that if you're at a part of your life where getting a degree to further your career, whatever it is, getting a bachelor's or master's degree can further your career and better your life situation, and this is what you're interested in, I think definitely go for it. If you already have a degree in really anything, then, and you have some career experience behind you, I think the equation changes a little bit. I think it does. Let me say this though. Do not go into massive amounts of student debt to acquire especially a cybersecurity degree. That's not a great move. You can do this. There are ways to do this without a baccalaureate degree. Even if you just pursue certifications, things like that, that can net you well-paying jobs without that additional debt. And I think that financial calculus really, really matters. So, like, if you're on the younger side and you're looking to get your college degree, go for it. As far as between cybersecurity versus computer science slash IT, I have heard pretty mixed reviews on most straight up cybersecurity programs. But then again, I've also heard some mixed things about some computer science programs. I mean, it really depends on what your interest is. I think that if you do computer science, you're going to have to do a lot of independent study to add the security components onto it. If that weren't the case, we wouldn't have half the problems that we have, right? Because programmers would learn some of what they'd have to do to secure their code in school, but that doesn't really happen. The delta between academic computer science, right, what you learn in college versus what you end up doing as a software developer is just massive. It's night and day. So those are some things to keep in mind there. The master's degree side of things changes a little bit. I've seen some pretty cool master's degrees in cybersecurity that are a little bit more career oriented, that can be kind of neat, especially if they have like a hiring pipeline. That's like, especially for graduate programs, that's what I would look for. Not just what the program is, but look for, do they have a placement program for career placement afterwards? If they do, and the alumni of those programs seem to be happy with what has happened after the program, that's something to look at. Yeah, I don't know. For most of my career, I felt very much like I was missing a lot by not having a computer science degree, and it's only very recently do I feel like I have filled in a lot of those gaps. That being said, having felt like that the whole time, I've never felt like I missed an opportunity. I just the difference there was the amount of imposter syndrome. And so I don't know that I wouldn't have felt that if I had a computer science degree, but I know that I did feel a lot of imposter syndrome without one, especially when I was starting to go to tech conferences and I was just like bringing my own, like, oh, I've learned Python, and it turned out that I learned a bunch of technologies, but I didn't know how where I stood amongst the larger kind of community of technology workers, because I didn't have any other people around me that were doing the same thing. So I don't know. I think it can give you a good footing, but I think the big calculus is there is the the cost the cost value proposition, because going into debt from especially for like a non accredited or not very well reputed program, but just something that you can afford, like, I don't know, that might not be the way to go for it. I think there are other ways to make that happen. All that being said, again, take that with as many grains of salt as necessary. And also, let me just put this out here. I know for sure that I've gotten lucky in a lot of ways arriving where I have in my career. And part of that is because I'm a white dude. I was given the benefit of doubt a lot of times to say, hey, well, I don't have the exact background for this, but this is how I can sound, this is how I can communicate, and I can make the case that because the people that I was interviewing with had certain, predefined ideas about what was going to work. I don't have to go into the mechanics of privilege. The point is that you got to recognize that. And so I know that I can't use my experience as what can work for everybody else. Okay. Is it not built-in administrators? Am I not spelling administrators correctly? I'm so confused. So this is a local group membership was enumerated. This is the local group membership. Maybe MS Edge Win 10? I'm very confused about what we're looking for here. But since we have the event ID 4799, we'll go back to our trusty filter XPath and see if we can do any better here. Ooh. That's so many. When did this thing happen? 2019. So we'll do oldest. We'll do oldest and max events too. Yeah, there we go. Interesting. Now, was that in the red line pull? And I just couldn't read it? No, it was not. So there is some stuff that gets missed when you just pull with redline. That's really good to know. And that speaks to the, the question that was asked before about what is better. There is no better. You're going to need all the tools and know how to put them together. Okay, we're still missing on this downgrade attack. I'm gonna do the same. So what was that, 400? And like, we want the we plainly didn't get the right one here. Is there like a super early one? Is one of these just like way off in the distance here? It's 12.8. Let's look for Windows Event 400s that I want to finish this room today. That don't have Win, that the machine is not Win 10. They're all from the same thing. Okay, well, that's unhelpful. I guess we're just, what? We're just looking at... Because the first one here is 12.8. But that doesn't track with what we saw in the hint, right? Because it's 12... Yeah, it doesn't. Okay. What event ID is to detect a PowerShell downgrade attack? What is the date and time this attack took place? I mean, we definitely have it. Unless it's this... I don't think we had the 337.24 before. The first one of these. 337.24. 14, 20, 337.24. That fits the pattern, but I guess that's not it. I am at a loss for what they are looking for this. Maybe they want the most recent. This was 12/18/2020, 7/50/33. That also fits the pattern. Good God. All right. That was very unclear. And we're done. So hopefully this was useful for y'all to understand how to go through some Windows event logs using a mix of tools, right? PowerShell with get win event, both a filter hash table and XPath, and Redline, which can be very, very powerful, especially as we do some other forensic stuff. You'll see me use Redline again. To collect more than just the event logs, so you can see how much information it can really pull and what a useful tool it is. But I think this was a good, gentle introduction to it and how you go through these. am I going to attempt the flare on CTF? So syscalls, I am, as usual, I'm going to fling myself at them and probably, not be super successful just because I'm such a baby reverse engineer. I will try, and I'll be happy to learn. And if you want to, provide some wisdom on that, I'd love to do some of that. I'm really, really interested in getting better at reverse engineering. So yeah, for sure. When I'm facing situations, you look at write-ups but don't know if you're doing right or wrong. Yeah, okay. So when if you are looking at write-ups and you're not really sure how to proceed from looking at the write-ups, what I think you have to start doing is writing. This is very like me being like an educational theorist in my spare time, but I truly believe that the nature of human knowledge is narrative, meaning that all of the information stored up here, when we try to put it into language, even for ourselves to understand, memories that we have, concepts that we grasp, they are narrative in nature, meaning that there is a story, however short, that you tell yourself about what the thing is and how it works and why. That's a story that you tell. And even your episodic memory that you recall when you did a thing, that's a story too. You remember that time that thing worked or that thing happened. So why does that matter for this? When you are going through rooms like this, or you're reading walkthroughs, you can't figure out how to figure out what you did wrong, or you're not sure how to understand something more, go through the exercise, right? And then when you're finished, write up what you did. And I don't mean in bullet points, I mean in sentences. That matters because your brain has to put stuff in order. It's like write a diary entry, right? You're journaling here. And by doing so, you are going to discover that you know exactly what you know. You want to try to use the word because a lot, because you want to explain why things are the way they are. And when you don't know, that is what you need to practice on, right? Imagine that you're explaining it to somebody else. Do that journaling. I know that's hard. I know that's a tough discipline to get into, but if you do that, you will discover the gaps in your understanding, and that's where you need to focus. And then the next time after you've read that walkthrough again, you probably won't have to struggle on that part. So I think that's a good place to end it for today. As always, I'm going to argue for writing more in your learning, that you want to create that journal so that you're mindfully, purposefully putting your thoughts in order, discovering where those gaps are. All right, so until next time, let's see if there's somebody who is streaming right now that we can raid. I don't have anybody on my list, so I'll send everybody else on their merry way. I will be back on Tuesday doing some red team stuff. Wednesday is doing... Oh, optional CTF? Alright, you got it. But yeah, until next time, friends, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I will see you next time.